Ever have one of those moments where all you want is just a few minutes of calm, but life has other plans? That was me, early summer, just back from college, craving some shade and a cold drink, hoping for a little peace. The sun was blazing, hot, probably hitting 92 degrees, but I was finally home in Willow Bend, a tiny town where everyone thinks they know everyone else's business. I just wanted to chill, keep my feet up, and sip on some lemonade. There's this old bench under a big elm tree at Pine Brook Park, right across from our weathered white house with peeling shutters and a massive maple tree my dad planted the year I started school. Here's where it gets interesting, or annoying, depending on how you feel about neighborhood politics. My dad, Hank, runs the local lumber yard. He's basically the guy who built half the town with his own hands. Years ago, he bought some rough land from a developer who went bankrupt and donated it to the city with one rule. It stays public, no fences, no special access. Just a place for everyone. That bench I was sitting on? Dad built it himself. This you. Sun was sticking to my sundress, Fleetwood Mac played softly on the radio, and my lemonade was sweating in my hand. Then Cheryl Langston appeared. Pine Brook Heights HOA's vice president and known for making simple things complicated. She marched up like I'd parked a dump truck on her lawn, arms crossed, voice sharp like a lemon wedge. "This bench is only for Pine Brook residents," she snapped, looming over me. I swear the temperature dropped a bit. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Funny, since I live right across the street." She gave me that calculating look, you know the one. Like she was figuring out how much trouble I'd cause. "That house is rented now, right? Only homeowners get access to amenities." Like I was some stray dog on her turf. I could have just walked away, grumbled to myself, and let her have her moment. But it was the way she said it, like I was dirt. Under her shoe, that made me stand firm. I pointed to the sign Dad had put up, Pine Brook Park, public land. I wasn't even mad, just amused. "Pretty sure this belongs to the city," I said casually. "Want some lemonade while you call security?" Cheryl nearly turned purple and stomped off. 10 minutes later, she returned with Greg, the neighborhood security officer, which really just meant a guy with a walkie-talkie and a badge sticker. Greg looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Cheryl started in again. "You're trespassing." I held up my lemonade. "I'm just drinking." Greg asked if I lived there. I told him, "My dad's Hank Carson. He donated this land and built this bench." You could see the wheels turning in Greg's head. He started mumbling about keeping things peaceful. Cheryl wasn't done. "She doesn't belong here. We pay dues, we have rules." Right then, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. No need to explain. He already knew and said he'd be there in 10. When Dad showed up, his truck shook. The street as he pulled in. Sawdust on his pants, arms built like tree trunks, and that looked like he'd seen enough HOA drama to write a book. Cheryl's fake smile vanished. Dad calmly said, "Cheryl, this is city property. No HOA rules apply unless you're the mayor." Now, she tried to argue about upkeep and dues. Dad fired back, "You pay dues. I pay most of the town's taxes, including your husband's business." You could see the color drain from her face. Then Dad looked at Greg. "Didn't I sponsor your daughter's cheer team uniforms?" Greg nodded sheepishly. Dad said, "Then let my kid finish her lemonade." Greg left quickly. Cheryl stormed, off dramatically, and I thought that was the end. But nope. Next morning, I woke to sounds of shovels and welding. Dad's crew was installing a heavy wrought iron fence, just on the side facing the HOA neighborhood. By noon, a new sign was up by our sidewalk. "Real Willow Bend residents welcome. Love thy neighbor or take a walk." Now Cheryl and her poodle have to take a 15-minute detour just to get into the park, she tried to claim. Most mornings, she passes by while I'm sitting on that same bench, radio humming, lemonade cold, waving like nothing happened. She looks straight ahead, jaw clenched like she lost something she can't admit. What's wild? I never raised my voice, never called her names. I just sat there letting the facts and my dad handle it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's watching people trip over their own rules. So was I being petty or standing up for what's right? Did we teach her a lesson or just draw a bigger line in the sand? What would you have done? Ever had a Karen try to kick you off something that wasn't even hers? Sometimes a bench isn't just a bench. It's where you decide what kind of neighbor you want to be. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear if you think this was right, wrong, or somewhere in between. So the story seemed to end. Cheryl slinks away, the fence goes up, and the town moves on. But life in Willow Bend isn't ever that simple, especially when pride and power are involved. I should have expected it. But I was 19, fresh home. From college, more worried about my tan lines than local politics. At first, things seemed quieter. Dad was up early working at the lumber yard, and I slipped back into my old routines, jogging through the park, grabbing lunch with my best friend Casey at the diner, late-night drives to soak in the summer air. But under it all was this strange tension, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. One afternoon, Casey and I were sitting on that same bench sharing a bag of chips when we spotted a few HOA folks wandering the park with measuring tapes and clipboards. Cheryl was there too, wearing those huge sunglasses like she was hiding from the IRS, pointing at the new fence and muttering to her little posse. Casey joked, "You think she's plotting world domination or just mad about the sign?" I laughed, but it was a nervous kind of laugh. You just knew something was brewing. A few days later, the first official letter showed up, not to us, but at Dad's shop, full of legal jargon accusing him of putting up an unauthorized barrier blocking Pine Brook Heights residents from their community green space. I mean, they sure know how to dress up petty. Dad read it once, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash, muttering they'd sue a squirrel if they thought it would pay dues. But by Friday, calls started pouring in. From City Hall, a local, news reporter, even Miss Jenkins from down the block. "Are you really fighting the HOA? Blocking the park?" they asked. Here's the twist. Cheryl had a secret weapon, her cousin Trevor, the assistant city planner. Quiet guy, never made eye contact, suddenly popping up at HOA meetings, city council sessions, talking zoning disputes and historical access like he was prepping a case. One night, I saw him walking the fence line with a flashlight, snapping photos like he was filming a true crime documentary. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Meanwhile, the town was splitting. Some folks on our side, some on Cheryl's, and plenty just trying to stay out of it. At the diner, whispers floated around. That park's always been for everyone. Why's the HOA making such a fuss? Then one night, as Dad was closing up the lumberyard, someone threw a rock through his office window and left a note taped to the glass. "Go back where you came from." Now, if you know Dad, you know that's like telling a boulder to move. He just boarded up the window, told me to keep my chin up, but there was something different in his eyes. Not fear exactly, but a tough, quiet sadness. Then came the council meeting, the small town drama at its finest. The rec center was packed, people fanning themselves, the mayor looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Cheryl went first, playing the concerned citizen, waving a folder of complaints, calling Dad's fence a hostile move against community harmony. Someone snorted from the back. Casey nudged me and whispered, "Bet she rehearsed that speech in the mirror." Dad didn't say much at first, just stood, voice low and steady. "I donated that land so the whole town could use it, not just the ones with the fanciest lawns." He pointed to the sign, the fence, the new path that still lets anyone in. "If you want to be a neighbor, act like one." People actually clapped. Cheryl's crew looked rattled. Trevor scribbled notes like he was guarding state secrets. Then something unexpected happened. Miss Jenkins, 83 years old, shuffled to the front, thumping the floor with her cane. "I remember when this was just weeds and junk," she said. "Hank cleared it with his own 2 hands. If you ask me, some folks need to remember what public means." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. Even the mayor cracked a smile. For a minute, it seemed like maybe this would blow over. But the next morning, news crews showed up, local papers, TV vans, even a podcaster chasing small-town America stories. Suddenly, my little moment on the bench was town news. People drove by just to stare. Dad shook his head, told me not to worry, but I caught him reading the comment sections at night, jaw clenched and eyes tired. Then things got weirder. An online petition started circulating. "Take back Pine Brook Park." Half the signatures were real, half were angry Facebook users from other states, but it snowballed. Cheryl's face became a meme. Park Karen holding a tiny fence like it was Excalibur. It was mean, but honestly kind of funny. Meanwhile, my friends and I decided that if they were going to film us, we'd give them a show. We organized a block-wide picnic, lawn chairs, guitars, cornhole boards. Miss Jenkins brought lemonade. Greg from security even brought his kids. There was music, laughter, no drama, just a neighborhood being itself. When Cheryl walked by, her sunglasses bigger than ever, she paused for a moment, then kept walking. No yelling, no clipboard, just silence. And that's the real twist, isn't it? Sometimes the loudest people end up with nothing left to say. Sometimes it's not about keeping people out. It's about showing where you stand. And sometimes the only thing left is to live your life, let people talk, and trust that the ones who matter see what's real. So yeah, I'm still on that. Bench some afternoons, still sipping lemonade, still waving at every neighbor, even the ones who scowl back. I don't know if Cheryl will ever let it go, but I do know this. A little kindness, a little backbone, and a good sense of humor can turn even the messiest neighbor drama into something you look back on and almost laugh about. What about you? Was putting up that fence the right move, or did we just fan the flames? Ever been caught in something way bigger than you expected and had to ride it out? I want to hear your story. Drop a comment. Tell me where you draw your lines and who you'd share your lemonade with if you had the chance.